Welcome back. I'm Toya Bodie, the executive chef at Delamaz Catering, and this is episode 7. And the last episode we tackled gumbo, and I'm really excited to report that a lot of my followers have tried the gumbo recipe, and it was very successful for the holidays for Thanksgiving. So now we're going to move on to one of another holiday favorite dishes that we have here called eggplant dressing. But the little spin that I put on my mother's recipe was that we're going to not only add regular seafood. Instead of regular seafood, we're going to add just crawfish. And it's one of those recipes where it's a comfort food. That's a lot of the foods that I pick. They're comfort foods. They're foods that you can invite someone over to relax, kick back, have a good time, and talk about memories. But it's very versatile. You can add chicken if you're allergic to seafood. You can add ham, regular smoked sausage if you like. You know, it varies across the board, and it's one of those recipes where usually someone will frown upon eggplant. But this method of cooking that I got from my mother, it really makes everyone across the board enjoy eggplant, because it doesn't immediately punch you as soon as you taste it. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to move to the ingredients and the tools, because the tools are very important for this particular recipe. We're going to start with the tools. You're going to need a food processor. This is mine. It's a Ninja. It's a normal one. It's not the professional one, as you can see. And if you don't have a food processor, you know, they also come, you know, tiny and round. You can kind of find one at regular department stores for cheap around the holiday time. But either you use this one, like a food processor, a regular one, or either you can use a blender. And I know a lot of us sometimes, you know, over the years, you know, from apartment to a house or whatever, you accrue different things and you add them up. And basically, like, I'm talking about blenders. So you get blenders, you can use one. Make sure you have a separate one, because once you start using food, I don't recommend it. Once you start using food, garlic, onions, and stuff like that inside of a blender to process it down, it can kind of keep that taste. I'm sure there's other concoctions you can do to get the flavor out, but I don't really recommend it. So if you have two, then use that. If you're a food processor, use that. And if your mom or grandmother has one, that's something I would do, is probably borrow it if I didn't have it. So you need a food processor. That's important for the meat and the eggplant also. You need a basting brush, 2 different types of knives, just in case. I recommend a hard, sturdy spoon. Nothing plastic, none of the rubber ones that, you know, after a while we're stirring the ground meat, it's a lot of arm work, and you don't want it to start to rub down and leave stuff going into your food. Okay, so now we're going to go to the olive oil for basting. You need a 1/2 teaspoon of the crab and crawfish ball. You need 1.5 cups, almost close to 2 cups of 5 cheese Italian shredded cheese. A cup of breadcrumbs, 1 eggplant, and if you want to make this for more than four people as a side, then definitely double the whole recipe and it'll be no problem. Jimmy Dean sausage, I recommend this sausage because I've used other ones for the pork sausage and it didn't come out as good. It was a little bit, it was more greasier, and the texture of the meat was a little different. So I recommend this specific brand. And ground chuck beef, a tablespoon, almost close to 2 tablespoons of Creole season. And if you need more, you can use more or less, you know, if you have to for health reasons. 3.5 tablespoons of minced garlic, 1/2 of a white Vidalia sweet onion, and 2 bunches, which contain 6 green onions apiece. 2 bunches of green onions, and 1/2 stick of butter, and of course, our main attraction, star of the show, the crawfish. So that's what's going to give it that good southern, you know, NOLA kind of flavor. So that's about it. We can get right to preparing everything. Now we're going to prepare the eggplant. The way I gauge where to cut the eggplant is that I try to find the dip. All the eggplants have a dip in the middle. So this one has a slight dip. It's more of a smaller one because it's for a small amount of people. So it's going to be a little slope right here because we want it to be really even and nice. This is where I'm taking my knife. Hold it like this and you can cut straight through this part. Don't even worry about it. And you want to try to get it as even as possible because you want it to be really attractive once you plate it. There we go. So just like that. Now to prepare them for the pan, the baking dish. I'm going to pour a little bit in here. Maybe a couple tablespoons. Get your basting brush and coat it evenly. Don't be afraid of it. It's okay. You just want to make sure that it doesn't dry out. You don't want the eggplant to dry out. Alright, so after this is going to go into the oven for up to 20 minutes. It just depends on how it cooks. So we're going to check it at about 15 minutes, but max up to 20 minutes that you'll need to bake it for to get it tender enough for you to scoop the insides out. Because what we're going to do is we're going to create a shell with this, and then later we're going to fill it. There we go. Now preheat your oven to 400 degrees, and once that's preheated, put the eggplants on a lined baking pan and voila, bake away for up to 20 minutes. Okay, I've added the pork sausage, which is the lighter one, and the ground beef. And we're going to break it up. And you see what I was saying earlier about how you need a good sturdy spoon, because this is kind of stubborn, especially dealing with the pork. Turn this around. And it's no problem to cook it together. We're going to cook it together, and then we're going to add a little bit of, a good portion of the creole season. We're going to add a good portion of the creole season, and we have this cooking on medium-high. And if you're uncomfortable with medium-high, you can always go down and take it a little slower. I have a tendency of cooking things on a higher fire just because, kind of gets it done quicker. Now since I've gotten majority of it broken up, I'm going to add some creole seasoning. Not all of it, just some of it to knock some of that beefy flavor out of it. Okay, good. You see it creates its own oil, so you don't have to worry about it really sticking too much to the pan. Alright, so after we brown this, then we're going to move over to the food processor. You see how it's turning brown? It kind of takes a minute, so you just have to keep fiddling. It's not something that you walk away from, because if you walk away from it, you're going to have little meat patties, which is something you don't want. You don't want it to cook together. You want it to stay separate, so it'll be easier to manipulate too, and you want it to be well blended. Okay, look at it. Now, it's all brown now, and that's exactly what you want it to look like. So that's going to be, you don't want any pink left over, because pretty much after this point, the meat is already cooked. Once we add everything together, each portion that we're adding together is already going to be pre-cooked. So when we do run it in the oven at the end, it won't be a serious cook time. It'll be more of getting the top all golden and toasty. So this is the finished product of properly browned meat. And if you taste this, that Jimmy Dean sausage releases so much flavor. I love it so much. So that's another reason why I like that particular brand. So now we're going to move on to the food processor. Now we're going to start with the meat in the food processor. You do small amounts at a time. Okay? So we're going to start with maybe 4 good spoonfuls, 4 to 5. And we're not going to chop it up until it's almost like a I guess you would say a pate or something like that, like mush. But we want to just loosen it up so it's so fine that it makes everyone love it. So let's see how many pulses we end up doing. 1, 2, 1 more. There we go. Now, here we go. I want you to see what it looks like. So I'm going to pull it off and let you get a look at it. Now look at this. This is thick chunks. You see? Some of these are thick chunks. And this is what we want to end up looking like. You see? It's little. And everything is uniform. Every piece that you pick up is pretty much uniform. You don't have to worry about big hunks. And I love everything to be smooth to the palate. I love it to be smooth and I like it to be even. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the remains that we've already processed, put it into a large container, and move on to the second batch. And we're going to repeat it until it's done. And then we'll move on to scooping out of the eggplant. Okay, so now it's time to scoop out the eggplant. You're going to use a nice thin spoon. You see how thin this is? So we're going to be gentle. And you know what? Take a look at the texture. You see how it's squishy? That's what we want it to be. See, it's easy to manipulate that way. And what we're going to do is we're going to start about right here. And you see how it's easy to slice? You don't want to cut down to the skin because you want to fill it. You know, but you know what? This is optional. You don't have to do this part. If you want to just scoop it out, however, and just get all the insides out and then throw the shell away, you can. But this is one of those impress the guests recipes. I guarantee you somebody's going to look at this at a party or a get together and think, what is that? Oh, I don't eat eggplant, but wait, let me try that just to see if it's nasty or to see what it's like. And they're going to try it, and I guarantee you they're going to love it. So I'm getting all of the goodness that gives you all the good eggplant flavor, and I'm gently just scooping it out. You see how I'm not scraping the bottom, I'm still leaving a little bit of the eggplant there. That's what you want to do. Get it halfway so you don't scoop too much. Just hold it and get the rest of it out. Get as much as you can without scraping the bottom. There we go. Let's move to the next one. We're going to scoop that and just put that on a plate in a minute. Okay, so now we've emptied out both shells. We're going to move this to another location until we're finished. And we have our shells. And they'll take more definition and life form once you start filling it with meat and shaping it and stuff like that. So it'll just be really beautiful on a plate. This is like one of the best things that I've ever plated. I think I did it, I also did it my senior year in school, in college, because it was that festive and attractive. So now we're going to move on to putting it in the food process. Alright, so this isn't like the ground meat. This is really quick. You put all of it in at one time. It's a little yucky. Put all of it in at one time, and then we're going to get this to be nice, mushy, and fine, because once it's mixed in with the meat, it'll be like a hidden ingredient that no one knew about. All right. All right. Let's check the consistency to see if that's what we like. Yep, separate and mushy. That's exactly what we need. We need it to be just like that. And it's enough to break some of the chunky pieces down, and it's going to mingle right in like it belongs with the ground meat. See? That's that. Now we're going to go over to the stove and mix this mixture with the meat mixture that we have and saute that up nice and good and marry those flavors. We're gonna, just a little bit of olive oil just to coat the bottom of the pan a little bit. We're going to add the garlic in first. Doesn't that sound good? Let that go around a little bit. Start that off to cooking. Now we're going to add the meat in. Then the eggplant. Because we want the flavors to get together and mingle and marry. So you want to put it over some heat. You know, you don't necessarily need it in a sense. You could just let it go just like this because it's cooked. It's fine. It's edible at this point. But you want to just go the extra mile with this. And you see how it's all blending together? And now since I've mixed it up, where's the eggplant? The most you see is garlic. You can't see the eggplant. So again, this is how it becomes one of those dishes that most people may not eat somewhere else, but they'll eat at your house because yours is prepared with a little extra love and a few secret trips to the food processor. Alright, so now we're going to move on to sauteing the crawfish and the rest of the chopped vegetables. We're going to melt down this butter. Get it nice and ready. Chop it up some, just to speed up the process. And now we're going to put everything inside of the pan according to what needs to cook the longest. And the onions, you don't want them to be still firm when you bite into it. You want it to be a little translucent. It's going to cook down some. Saute this. Now we're going to add the green onions. Which this looks like a lot in the pan at one time, but it's going to wilt down so quick. And once it wilts down and it gets nice and soft, we're going to add in the crawfish. And then after that, we're going to use the crawfish ball. Okay, so you see how everything is now wilted, like I spoke of earlier. Now it's time to add the crawfish. You're going to put the crawfish in with the fat. That's the orange liquid that's inside of the package. And if you have a hard time finding crawfish in your area, then you can always order it online. That in Louisiana is good for selling their seafood online, so you know, it's not too hard to get a hold of. You know what I'm saying? And it's actually reasonably priced when I checked it out online, just to see, you know, because I was thinking that I'm going to be recommending this stuff to people, but what if they can't get it? How expensive will it be? Not too expensive. You just have to shop ahead of time, you know. So that's cooking. That's going to take no time to cook flat. I'm going to add that in to bring some of that flavor together. Here we go. We're going to saute this together. Add a little bit, the remainder of Creole seasoning. And you see they're already starting to curl up, and that's what you want. You want them to curl up. And this is going to add so much flavor to that eggplant and sausage. I wish you could smell it through the camera. It smells like an actual crawfish bowl once you add this stuff into it. It's a beautiful smell. Very beautiful. If you've ever traveled to New Orleans to go to a crawfish bowl, you know what I'm talking about. So, look how fast it's curling up. Now, it's time to just set it to the side. And now we're about to mix both. And before we do that, there's always a part in Southern recipes where you can remove some of the portion of the pot of the stuffing before you add seafood, or even with gumbo. You remove, if someone is allergic to any seafood or shellfish, you want to prepare a separate portion for them by just taking a portion out before you add all of this into it. Because I have a sister who's allergic to seafood, so I won't be able to give her this portion You know, so I'm going to take some out ahead of time. So, you know, you never want your relatives to feel left out. So, since we're always adding in all Southern recipes, we're always adding the seafood in last, you can take a portion out for somebody else to enjoy your meal, minus the seafood and the allergic reaction. Okay, back to showtime. Sizzling already. Now we add everybody together. It's a little party. Mix it together. It's looking beautiful already. Now we're going to add half the cheese. Half of the cheese. There we go. Add half of that. Cut the fire off because the heat is going to cook it already. And the minute it starts being to the consistency you want, you don't have to add so much breadcrumbs. You can check it, and trust me, at this point you can taste it. So you can see what you like, and you can think, oh, you know what, I want it to have a little bit more breadcrumbs in it, or I want to add whatever. This is the point where you can add some more seasoning if you want after you taste it. There we go. That's enough for me. Now we're going to stuff the eggplants. So now we're going to take heaping amounts of the stuffing. Then we're going to fill the shells. And any leftover, I'm sure there's someone around you in your kitchen that's willing to take that off your hands. And we're going to fill it so full that it's almost overflowing, because of course it looks better that way. And again, this is something that you're going to bring to a party. I love to make sure that there's crawfish visible on top, to make sure that people can see that it contains seafood, so no one would have an issue. And you see, it was all flimsy at first, but as soon as the stuffing gets in it, it looks better. It's more appealing that way too. There we go. And overflowing is fine. Make it nice and full. You see how pretty this is looking already? It's not even toasted yet. But wait till we get the butter, and I mean, not the butter, but wait till we get the cheese and everything on it. It's gonna look really, really good. So now we're gonna add the remainder of cheese, well, some cheese and breadcrumbs. Right here. And then we're gonna add a little bit of parsley after the breadcrumbs. And this is all not so much for flavor but decor. And I love fresh parsley because it's fragrant. There we go. Now we're going to run this in the oven for 400 degrees for about 15 minutes, or at least until the cheese gets all nice and melted and bubbly and golden. And then it'll be ready for your plate. Thank you again. I am Toya Bodie from Delamaz Catering. I'm the executive chef, and this has been the eggplant episode.